Betrayal Hub. Subscribe. Subscribe for realistic relationship stories that don't try to sell you a lesson. Settle the bill and leave. She did not whisper it. She did not soften it. Claire said it across the table like she was giving instructions to a waiter, not to her husband. Her friends went quiet for half a second. Then one of them laughed. A sharp, approving sound. We were at a long table in the back of a downtown restaurant. Low lights. Loud music. The kind of place Claire loved because everyone could see who you were sitting with. I had come straight from a job site. Clean shirt, but my hands still rough from lifting frames all day. Across from me sat women who lived in event calendars and filtered photos. And next to Claire, leaning a little too close, was Evan. Party promoter. Always in a fitted jacket. Always scanning the room like it belonged to him. Earlier in the evening, they had started small. One friend asked how the window empire was going. Another joked that at least I worked with glass, since I was so transparent. Claire smiled at that. Not uncomfortable. Not apologetic. Just amused. At some point, Evan said it must be nice having a husband who installed things because it saved money on real upgrades. He let that hang in the air. Claire picked up her phone and said I still texted her like a contractor sending invoices. She read one of my messages out loud. It was about picking up supplies. Nothing personal. Just practical. They laughed. I watched her thumb scroll, like there was more she could share if she wanted to. Then the check came. She looked at me, not angry, just distant, and said I could settle it and head out because they were thinking of going somewhere a little more fun. Evan leaned back and said they could continue the night without dragging anyone who had to wake up early. Claire did not correct him. I reached into my wallet, paid for my meal and my drink only, and stood up. I slid my wedding ring off and placed it on the table in front of her plate. I told her to keep the ring. It was over. No one laughed that time. By the time I reached my truck, my phone was already vibrating in my pocket. I did not look at it. The restaurant door swung open behind me. I heard heels on pavement. Claire's voice called my name once, not loud enough to cause a scene, but urgent enough to show she was not finished. I kept walking. She caught up near the curb and said I was overreacting. Said it was a joke. Said her friends did not mean anything by it. She gestured back toward the entrance where the glass reflected warm light and moving silhouettes. Inside, I could see Evan standing near the bar now, watching through the window. Claire said I embarrassed her. Said walking out like that made it look dramatic. Said we could talk at home instead of turning it into a spectacle. I told her there was no spectacle. I had simply accepted her suggestion and left. She looked at my hand, noticed the missing ring, and her expression shifted for the first time that evening. She said I did not have to do that. Said I was being extreme. I told her to enjoy the rest of her night. Evan stepped outside then. He did not approach fully, just enough to be visible. He said they were heading to another spot across town and asked Claire if she was coming. He did not look at me when he said it. Claire hesitated for half a second. Then she told him she would be there in a minute. That was the answer. I got into my truck and drove away. At the first red light, I finally glanced at my phone. 3 missed calls from Claire. 2 texts from her friend Madison saying I needed to calm down. 1 unknown number that I recognized as Evan's. There was also a notification from a shared cloud folder Claire used for work. A file had been updated. Out of habit, I opened it when I parked a few blocks away. It was not work material. It was a screenshot of a group chat labeled Girls Only. My name was in it. And the last message, sent earlier that evening, read that if I acted cheap again, she might trade up before the year was over. I did not drive home. Instead, I pulled into a quiet lot near one of my job sites and opened the screenshot again. It was not just one message. Claire had been forwarding my texts to her friends for months. Photos of me loading windows into the truck. Jokes about my uniform. Comments about how I counted expenses before agreeing to vacations. One message from her said she felt like she was married to a supplier, not a man. Madison had replied that at least suppliers were predictable. Another friend asked if I ever surprised her with anything other than invoices. Evan's name appeared in the thread more than once. Not directly involved, but referenced. Someone had said he knew how to treat a woman who liked nice things. Claire had responded with a laughing emoji and wrote that she deserved an upgrade. The timestamp on that message was from earlier that week. I locked my phone and sat in the truck for a long minute. Then I drove home. The apartment was dark when I walked in. Claire had not returned yet. I went straight to the small office space where I kept paperwork for my window installation business. The lease was in my name. The utilities were in my name. The storage unit we used for overflow materials was in my name too, even though she had listed it under her event agency's address for convenience. I opened my laptop and began separating accounts. The joint credit card was removed from my business profile. Automatic transfers to her savings account were paused. The shared phone plan was adjusted so each line billed separately. I did not rush. I did not slam drawers. I moved through each task the way I handled a job site, one window at a time. Around midnight, my phone started lighting up again. Claire had posted a story from a rooftop bar. Music in the background. Evan's shoulder visible next to her. The caption said the night was young. 2 minutes later, she called. I watched it ring. Then Madison called. Then another friend. By the time the screen stopped glowing, there were a dozen notifications stacked on top of each other. I stood up, walked to the front door, and removed the spare key from the hook by the entryway. In the morning, I would change the locks. I turned off the lights and left the apartment. She did not know yet that she was coming home to a different address than the one she left. In the morning, I was already at the hardware supplier when Claire finally texted something that was not defensive. She wrote that we needed to talk before I did anything stupid. I did not answer. By noon, a locksmith was standing in my doorway, replacing the front and back locks while I held the old hardware in my hand. He did not ask questions. He just worked. I changed the keypad code on the garage, updated the alarm system password, removed her fingerprint from the smart entry. It was quiet work. Precise. Around mid-afternoon, Claire came home. I saw her car pull into the driveway through the living room window. She stepped out wearing the same dress from the night before, heels in her hand. Her hair was tied back now. No rooftop glow. No music. She reached the door and tried her key. It did not turn. She tried again, slower. Then knocked. I opened the door but did not step aside. She looked past me into the house like it might still be hers if she could just see it. She asked what I had done. I told her I secured my property. She said this was insane. Said she had been out with friends. Said nothing had happened. Said I was reacting to private jokes that were never meant for me. I told her private jokes do not get forwarded by accident. Her face shifted at that. She asked how I saw the chat. I told her it did not matter. She said I had invaded her privacy. I told her she had shared mine first. The neighbor's curtains moved slightly across the street. People notice raised voices even when there are none. She asked where she was supposed to go. I told her she could call Evan, or Madison, or any of the people who thought I was temporary. She said that was not fair. I handed her a small envelope. Inside was a notice terminating the storage unit lease tied to her event agency address. My tools would be picked up by the end of the week. She looked at it like it was written in another language. I told her I was staying at an extended stay hotel near a job site for now. Her phone buzzed in her hand. She glanced at it and then quickly locked the screen. I closed the door gently. Through the wood, I heard her call my name once. I did not open it again. By evening, my phone was doing exactly what she predicted. It was blowing up. Claire called first, then Madison, then 2 other numbers from her circle. Evan's name flashed once and disappeared before I could even consider it. I did not decline the calls. I let them ring until they stopped. Instead, I focused on moving the last of my equipment out of the storage unit tied to her event agency's address. The manager met me at the gate and said Claire had come by earlier asking why access had been restricted. He said he told her the leaseholder had made changes. I loaded the final crates into my truck and signed the termination papers. On my way back, I stopped by the apartment one more time to grab the last of my business files. Claire was sitting on the porch steps when I pulled up. Not crying. Not dramatic. Just waiting. She stood when I got out and said she had been calling because things had gotten out of hand. Said Evan had posted something online implying they were celebrating new beginnings. Said people were tagging her. Said it looked wrong. I told her it looked accurate. She said nothing physical had happened before that night. Said she had only accepted the invitation to prove she was not controlled. Said she never expected me to walk away in front of everyone. I told her she asked me to leave. She said she thought I would come back. I unlocked the door and walked past her into the house. She followed. Inside, the place already felt different. Quieter. Less cluttered. I had boxed up personal documents and moved them to the guest room. She said we could fix this. Said she would leave the group chat. Said she would cut off Evan. Said she would delete every screenshot. I did not raise my voice. I told her trust does not get restored by deleting evidence. Her phone buzzed again. She looked down and her face tightened. She said Evan was asking if she was still coming to an after-party that night. Said he did not understand why she was not responding. I watched her type a message. Then she deleted it without sending. For the first time, she looked unsure of which side of the door she was standing on. The next morning, I transferred the last automatic payment out of our joint account. Utilities were now billed directly to me. The streaming services she insisted on were removed. The car insurance was separated. Each change sent a notification to her phone. She started texting before noon. She said her card had been declined at a coffee shop. Said the joint account showed a different balance. Asked what I had done. I replied that finances were no longer shared. She said that was extreme. Said we were still married. I told her we were still legally married. That was all. Around midday, Madison called from Claire's phone. She said I was humiliating her friend. Said everyone makes jokes in private chats. Said I was blowing this up because I felt insecure about my income. I listened without interrupting. She said Clare never physically cheated. Said I should be grateful it never went that far. I asked her if she would say the same thing if her husband's messages had been passed around and laughed at for months. There was a pause on the line. She said that was different. I told her it was not. Later that afternoon, I received a message from Evan. He said he did not intend to cause problems. Said he thought Clare and I were already drifting apart. Said she had implied things were practically over. Said he would step back if needed. I read it once and did not respond. That evening, Clare showed up at the extended stay hotel. The front desk called my room and said a woman was asking to see me. I told them to let her up. She entered slowly, taking in the small kitchenette, the folded work clothes on the chair, the tool belt hanging by the door. She said this was not a life. Said I was punishing both of us to make a point. I told her I was living close to my work. She looked around and said Evan had stopped answering her texts. Said he claimed he did not want drama. Said her friends were now advising her to give me space, like this was some trend. For the first time, her voice lost its edge. She asked if I had already decided she was replaceable. I told her I had already decided I was not. Claire did not come back the next day. Instead, she sent a long message in the afternoon saying she had told her friends the truth. Said she admitted she crossed a line at dinner. Said she allowed things to be said that should never have been said. She wrote that Madison told her she should have defended me in front of everyone. Said it looked bad that she did not. I did not respond. Later, one of my installers, Jake, mentioned he had seen Evan at a launch party the night before. Said Evan was joking that he dodged a bullet by not getting involved in someone else's divorce. I kept working while Jake talked. By evening, Claire showed up at the job site where I was finishing a residential install. She stood by the curb, watching as I secured the last frame into place. When I walked toward my truck, she stepped forward and said she had blocked Evan. Said she left the group chat. Said she told her friends to delete everything they ever shared about me. I asked her if that changed what was already done. She said she had underestimated how far things had gone. Said she thought teasing was harmless. Said she did not see how humiliating it was because I never complained. I told her silence is not permission. She looked at the house behind me and said the homeowners had just complimented my work. Said she heard them telling their neighbor I was reliable. Her voice softened when she said that word. She said she built her world around approval and forgot what respect looked like at home. I did not argue with her. She asked if there was any version of this where we could reset. I told her I do not reset foundations after cracks run through them. She stood there for a long time, watching me load my tools. As I closed the truck bed, her phone buzzed again. She glanced at it and then turned the screen toward me. It was a message from one of her friends saying that if she was choosing me over the group, she should be sure I was worth losing everyone else. Claire did not answer it. For the first time since that dinner, she looked like she understood the cost. The house felt different without her things in it. By the end of the week, Claire had come by with a moving van and taken most of her clothes, her decor, the framed event posters she loved to hang in the hallway. She moved carefully, not arguing, not rushing, just packing. I stayed in the garage while she worked inside. At one point, she stepped out and said she had signed a short-term lease on a small apartment near her office. Said it was easier than staying with friends who were still discussing her behind her back. She did not say their names. I handed her a box with a few items she had forgotten in the guest room. She thanked me without looking up. That evening, she sent a message asking if we could meet somewhere neutral again. Not to argue, not to beg, just to talk. I agreed. We met at a quiet coffee shop near the warehouse district where I had a project lined up for the next month. She arrived early. No designer coat this time. Just jeans and a simple sweater. She said she had reviewed the group chat history in full. Said she had scrolled back months and realized how often she had let others define our marriage for entertainment. Said it looked different reading it alone. I did not interrupt. She said Evan had stopped responding entirely once it became clear I was not chasing her or causing scenes. Said he was already hosting events with someone else at his side. She asked if that mattered to me. I told her it only confirmed what I already knew. She leaned forward and said she had confused attention with value. Said she mistook public approval for private strength. Said when I walked out and paid only for myself, something shifted in the room she had not expected. She said her friends went silent because they realized she might have gone too far. I asked her why that mattered now. She said because when the noise stopped, there was nothing left backing her up. Her phone buzzed once on the table. She did not reach for it. For the first time since the restaurant, she let it ring out in front of me and did not flinch. A few days after the coffee shop meeting, Claire asked if she could come by the house one last time to pick up the final box from the hallway closet. I told her she could, but I would be there. When she arrived, the driveway was empty except for my truck. The house looked stripped down, clean, almost staged for sale. She walked in slowly, like she was entering a place she once knew but no longer owned. The box was already by the door. Inside were old photo albums, a few birthday cards, and the wedding album we had not opened in years. She held the album in her hands and said she had looked through the digital copies the night before. Said she barely recognized the version of herself in those photos. Said she saw someone who respected the man standing next to her. I did not respond. She placed the album back in the box and said her friends had stopped inviting her out as often. Said Madison told her she had changed sides. Said people in her industry noticed drama quickly and avoided it faster. She said Evan had unfollowed her online. She did not say it angrily, just as a fact. I told her attention moves on to the next headline. She nodded. She asked if I ever planned to file officially. Said she would not fight it. Said she understood now that what she did was not just teasing. It was betrayal. The word hung in the room. I told her paperwork could be handled when needed. She stepped closer then and said she never thought a man who installed windows would be the one to close the door on her. I told her I install them so people can see clearly. She almost smiled at that, but it did not fully form. She asked if there was still a chance. I looked around the empty living room. No framed posters. No party invites pinned to the board. Just clean walls. I told her chances depend on whether the foundation is rebuilt, not repainted. She picked up the box and walked to the door. This time, when she stepped outside, she did not look back immediately. She stood there, holding everything that was left. A week later, Claire asked to meet one more time. Not at the house. Not at a cafe. She suggested the small park near the first apartment we ever rented, back when neither of us had much and no one cared what we posted online. I arrived early. She walked up without her phone in her hand this time. It stayed in her bag. She said she had been offered a promotion at work. More events. More visibility. More travel. She said a month ago, she would have celebrated by inviting everyone out and tagging half the city. Now she said she had not told anyone yet. She stood across from me and said she understood that what she did was not just about one dinner. It was months of letting other people measure me out loud. Said she confused mockery with bonding. Said she mistook my steadiness for something she could trade up from. I let her speak. She said when I paid only my part of the bill and left the ring on the table, something shifted in her world. Said her friends saw it. Said the laughter stopped because they realized I was not competing. She asked if I was filing for divorce. I told her I had not rushed it. She nodded slowly and said she was not asking me to forget what happened. Said she was asking if there was a way to rebuild on different terms. Said she would step back from the noise. Said she would keep our life private if there was still a chance to have one. I watched her carefully. No crowd. No rooftop bar. No friends waiting for updates. Just us. I told her I do not argue in public. I do not compete for attention. And I do not stay where I am mocked. She said she understood. I told her if there was any future, it would be quiet. Separate finances. Separate spaces until trust proved itself. No more sharing our life for entertainment. She did not negotiate. She said she would accept those terms. The sun dipped lower over the park. Cars passed in the distance. I did not reach for her. But I did not walk away either. For the first time since that dinner, The phone in her bag stayed silent, and she did not look at it once.